Stewie, where have you been?
Oh, many American baby things am I doing. So, what is your favorite ballistic missile launch codes?
Happy Election Day, my fellow Americans. Or Americans, if you are voting in order to get that sticker from Amir Talay. I mean, I was already going to vote, but hey, sticker. Before you go vote, unless you already voted like me, well, why don't you unwind by watching this episode of Family Guy? But Kitty, why this episode? I know Trump is a candidate, so that likely informs a lot of your consideration towards it, but really? Yes, really! Also, BTW, since this is a political episode, politics will obviously be involved, because I can't talk about it without talking about politics. But let's all try to behave ourselves, shall we, please? Oh, you don't like being whacked over the head with politics? Well, that'll inform most of my criticisms this video. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy. Or more specifically, Trump Guy. One of their episodes that for many people ranks pretty high on their worst of list. Kinda like Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. It's also hated by liberals and conservatives. Wow, liberals and conservatives can finally agree on something, because Family Guy wants to lecture us on politics. And once again, just putting it out there, this is a political episode, so the following is for mature Zoobles only. But I will try my hardest to put my feelings out there in a way that's impartial, because I mostly just want to critique the episode on its own. Now, fun fact, one of the first scripts I ever wrote for YouTube was back at the beginning of 2020, and that was on Trump Guy. And rereading it for this video, wow, I improved. But I guess some things never change. Pretty sure Chucky said that after he stabbed a man 39 times. However, before we begin, let me tell you a little story. Probably the biggest show on my channel at the moment is American Dad. And like I always say, that show started off kind of like King of the Hill if it tried to be more like South Park, where they talked about politics, but instead of, say, conservatives responding to broader issues like music or video games, they included narrow, current events at the time, like the president and whatnot.
Coffee! I'll get you some coffee. How do you take it?
Well, Stan, I like my coffee like my Secretaries of State. Not too dark and a little sweet.
But because, unlike South Park, American Dad actually takes a year to produce, well, its first few seasons quickly became dated. It was to the point where the writers had to Google their own jokes when they aired on TV, because those moments they passed over quickly. Like, they actually forgot some of those people or topics. And I think that's first and foremost why Trump Guy is a poorly written episode. And if you might have guessed, no, I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't like the guy nor his policies. But that doesn't mean I like how he's presented here. Just trying to be fair as a critic and say this, if only because, well, let's discuss the episode itself. You'll see what I mean. Trump Guy was a two-parter with hefty shades of gray, where Peter developed white hair, and because of this, he became a right-wing news anchor, and he was hired to act as press secretary for Donald Trump, setting the stage for this episode. Now, if you're living under a rock, or were a kid back then, Trump was a controversial president for reasons you can Google on your own time if you don't know already. And he was controversial even back in 2015 when he first ran for office. But I'm the type where, because comedians and news cycles make fun of current events as they happen, well, by the time cartoons tend to get to it, it'll probably be long dated.
You're not speaking to President Trump. That's a butternut squash.
Oh. Well, if this lumpy orange garbage vegetable is here, then where's President Donald Trump?
Or kind of like The Simpsons, it'll come off like your great uncle who wants to get in good with them kids, thinking that if he just uses slang constantly, we'll laugh. Because what else can you really say about Trump that hasn't already been said by everybody else? That his skin is orange? Wow, I couldn't tell. That he didn't always live at the White House and didn't really use it as a base of operations? Wow, my mind is blown. That he likes to drink Diet Coke? Oh my goodness, how edgy. Next thing you're gonna tell me is he was in Home Alone 2. Actually, that was pretty funny. I think like 2017, 2018, that Christmas. No, maybe like 2019, actually. I'm sorry, like the years are all blurred. I remember we had Home Alone on like during Christmas, and I was like, hey, hey guys, look, it's the president. At least with Bryce Tankfrost as a Trump parody, they still kept her character and didn't copy every single little thing. And plot-wise, it also fit into the normal British series that they were doing at the time, so I guess she's like the one exception. In fact, that's part of why I hate shows that are meant to make fun of current events like Our Cartoon President or The Prince, because either they're gonna be dated after they end, or they just repeat the same jokes over and over, aka jokes that have already been done, because they're on a crunch table and they have to put it out like this.
Well, that's the bell. Really fun day, guys. Text me later. Free Britney! I never know where we stand with him.
And for South Park, I'll get to my feelings when I eventually cover Garrison Trump, aka Grump, even if I do like how they make the point that while they don't like the guy, they show why somebody would have wanted to vote for him. But let's get to the actual episode of Trump Guy, because I'm stalling. Guys, I really don't want to have to do this. The Griffins have moved to Washington, D.C., which I hate to say it, this could have been a good plotline for an episode. I mean, Peter did go there several times previously, like in PTV to protest the FCC, or when he became a smoking lobbyist.
You know what they say, Timmy? Early peaches, long summer.
Smoke.
What's that, Lassie?
Are you smoking yet?
The thing is, well, we mostly only stick to the president and the White House. And presenting Family Guy's version of Our Cartoon President. Yay.
White House is great. There's no wonder you spend 2 days a week here.
Tremendous. Amazing.
Don't go in there. It's not safe.
Well done, Peter.
Wow, I totally did not think they were going to do the most obvious joke, because why wouldn't they? You know what, I can't do this the whole video, okay? Like, when I watch a TV show, it's to be entertained, or to put some background noise on, usually the former. And honestly, this whole episode really isn't entertaining. It just feels like a lecture. And again, this is coming from somebody who does not support this guy. Like, literally, instead of showing what Trump did was bad, they just say it word for word like you're watching a PBS documentary.
And I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of your board game and your beef products and your fraudulent university.
And if I wanted a lecture on politics, I'd go back to graduate school. Mostly because, again, they don't do anything with it beyond the most lazily obvious. And that's kind of why I think this episode shouldn't have existed, because what else could you say that we didn't already know? And the sad part is, they easily could have cut out most of the Griffins and just made this a Peter episode. Because the only people who ever really interact with the president are Peter and Meg. The other Griffins, they're just there, kind of. Which is weird and oddly kind of restrictive. Say what you want about The Prince, I hate that show with every fiber of my being, and I think it's very lazy outside of the butler and that one song, and it really should have focused more on the servants of Queen Elizabeth rather than her great-grandson, but they made fun of everyone, who the mainstream American audience would know because they're edgy like that.
They'll have to bury me in this crown. Do you hear me? Because you will never be King Charles. Never!
We're not obviously gonna talk about people like Princess Beatrice or Eugenie or something like that. Here, they do make a joke about Stewie getting involved with Russian spies.
What kinds of things do you hearing from our Mr. USA President?
I don't know, fellow American, but here's my Gmail login and password, because I know I can trust you with it.
Wonderful.
And that could have easily been a whole subplot, but no. Like, imagine Stewie interacting with Trump. That's like a gold mine. Or they could have had Brian stand up to Trump because he's a liberal contrarian, but no, too. I mean, remember when he would hang out with Rush Limbaugh? How would Trump react to Brian saying he hates him and everything he stands for? Even Chris doesn't really do anything.
Dibs on the bedroom in which an intern got murdered.
Oh, I want the intern murder bedroom.
There's no need to fight, kids. An intern has been murdered in each of the bedrooms.
I hate to say it, this really should have been an American Dad episode. Oh, come on, let me explain. Look, one episode I do enjoy from American Dad is Bush Comes to Dinner, which makes fun of George Bush back when he was still president.
No pool. Nope.
I can't believe it. This is a national disaster.
Maybe we should call FEMA so they can rescue him in 4 or 5 days.
And even if the episode made the point they do not like George Bush, I mean, his re-election was the reason for the show's creation, well, I do respect how they weirdly made him sympathetic when they really didn't have to, and in a way that worked. Even Haley eventually comes around to him.
No matter how much I messed up, my daddy always believed in me. Heck, Stan, your daughter's not a lost cause.
She's right on track to be president.
Obviously, I don't know how you'd make a figure like Trump sympathetic, although I guess Spring Break from South Park found a way somehow, but really I would trust the crew of American Dad to handle a topic like this a bit better than their sister show, just because there's so much more I know they could do. Like, all of the Smiths could easily get involved. Roger could try to sue Trump as Stormy Daniels, Francine could hang out with his wife, Haley could try to protest him, Steve could admire him, and Stan has to be like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Stan could basically, replace George Bush with him. Or I say this in many of my videos, and I kind of want to write a spec script off of this because I write fanfics in my spare time. What if they had an episode where Roger was Trump, a la Moon over Isla Island, where something happens and it turns out Roger has been him all along?
Best tiramisu I've ever had. Maybe too much rum.
Okay, dinner's over.
Like if Stan had to bodyguard the president during a speech he's giving in Langley Falls, and he gets to meet him beforehand, and it turns out, oh my god, Roger's Trump. Think about how much sense that would make. Why is Trump never at the White House? For the same reason Rosalind Jenkins is always getting her experimental treatments. Why is Trump saying all of these inflammatory things? Roger just got hammered and said whatever came to mind. Plus, remember Return of the Bling, where Stan learned that Roger was part of the Olympic hockey team, and he started kissing up to him? Imagine what he would do if Roger was Trump.
And of course I couldn't feel a thing because of all the steroids I was on.
Steroids?
And I know some of you said he was in an earlier episode, but I could just handwave it. Like maybe he stole Trump's identity or whatever. Anyhow, sorry, rant aside, this episode is focused on Meg for some reason. Maybe because the Bill Clinton episode focused on her mother, and like mother, like daughter. She doesn't enjoy being in DC.
Tomorrow at James Woods High, it's Scoliosis Spine Check Day. It's the one day a year I get touched.
Meg, your father got this great new opportunity, and we need to support him.
I feel the same way. DC is hella expensive. Like, I thought New York was bad. Even if I'd argue she has a ton of new opportunities here. Like, she could go to Sidwell Friends, where because it's a Quaker school, they don't have class ranks. And the Metro line is really good. Unless you want to leave the little DC quadrangle, and then it makes the LA subway look as good as the Manhattan subway. The Griffins are invited to a state dinner where Meg finds she can't fit in.
And we're glad you brought your 2 children and former Governor Chris Christie.
That's like the 4th person who's called Meg Chris Christie.
It's a Jersey thing. Go have some Taylor ham. I mean, come on, who calls it pork roll? I mean, when you get a Band-Aid, you don't call it a bandage.
I'll take the 5th.
That works on 2 levels. Layered. Hi, Brian Griffin. They let me write some of the liberal jokes. How you liking them? Good, there's more coming.
I freaking knew it. I hate these jokes, and I hate you, Brian. Actually, weirdly, I think this could have salvaged the episode. Like, what if it was revealed this entire episode was Brian writing what he thought America was like, when really, again, he's kind of like the people who wrote The Simpsons. Or they use that as a framing device for the whole episode, like, okay, I'm Brian. I need to write a political spec script. Here it is. Brian, this is awful. You're fired. Because it really feels like a Twitter post Brian would write after getting canceled and forced to move into an apartment. Like, look at how cool I am. I like politics too, even if I don't understand them. Only a hack like him would find this funny. Meg tries to sneak out, but she runs into Trump's daughter, an ethereal beauty. Hey, I'm just saying, that's how she's portrayed in the episode. Ivanka Trump, who has a lot of stuff going on in her personal life.
My husband is the son of a felon who went to prison for blackmailing his brother-in-law and then mailing a copy of the tape to his own sister. All that stuff happened for real.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. The show doesn't show that, it tells us. So it feels less like a joke and more like a, okay, I get it, but couldn't I just Google that, please?
When I'm done with you, you'll be pretty enough to marry an Orthodox Jewish son of a felon who's too stupid to get into Harvard the normal way.
And whose voice is way higher than you thought it would be?
I guess with South Park, they told us stuff like, oh, this is what Scientology really believes. But they also showed us at the same time by explaining the backstory of Xenu, and then having at the bottom flashing like, this is what Scientology really believes. Therefore, they were educating the audience on a topic as much as joking about it. And with Scientology, it was something most people didn't know about at the time, or only really knew the barest of details. To be fair, I didn't know that about Ivanka Trump or her husband, but that could have been cool to bring up in a way that wasn't so overhanded. Like maybe she could bring that up as a plan to Meg and be like, oh my god, who would do that? Oh, my husband, he did it in real life, or something like that. Really, a better way to do this whole episode would be to focus it only on Peter and Trump, where Peter thinks Trump is a good guy, and then that pedestal gets broken when he realizes he has some skeletons in the closet. I mean, maybe Lois refused to go to DC with him because she doesn't like Trump or his policies, and the kids are kind of the same and they stay with her. Just saying, come on, when you made fun of him and Putin, you only kept him and Putin.
Putin is the best.
Ha! I write this part. Am I not to be a stinker? Bye-bye, American situation comedy with drawings.
Sorry, getting off track again. I'm sorry if I keep doing this. But Meg does forge a connection with Ivanka Trump, because considering Tiffany Trump, who I coincidentally share a birthday with, well, she has experience turning dumpy Marfa dump truck girls into dump truck successes.
That girl is pretty.
So pretty by DC standards.
With Geico, you can save up to 15% on car insurance.
Wow! 2/3 of the people here are talking about me.
Wow, Meg, you basically look the same, just with different hair. Clearly, you're much better looking than you were before, am I right? But Meg gets to be so popular that after this 10-minute meeting and debut, she's allowed to meet the president. Surprised that the president didn't meet Peter's family already.
Dad, thanks again for getting me plastic surgery in my teens.
Wow, did Brian write that too? Does he get $1 for every joke he writes? And Trump, well, he does a thing. He rings Meg's bell, for lack of a better word.
Oh my god!
Oh, please, every president since Washington has done this.
Of course, since this is Meg, well, she goes to the Griffins, and she is not believed. I mean, you saw Peter harassment.
Meg, that's my boss. All right, this is my career you're talking about. I spent a whole day working on this. You want me to just throw away in one day what I've spent a whole day trying to build?
Peter, you do worse things in quicker increments of time. Who you fooling? But Lois, you've been with Bill Clinton before. Actually, that's another thing. See, I think another reason this episode doesn't work for me is that it makes no sense in universe, which is why I hate most political episodes. Either it feels like a Tumblr post stretched to 20 minutes, and/or they change up everybody for the sake of it, even if it wouldn't make sense otherwise. And it's only their views. Anything else, they only pick the most radical or extreme of topics. One of the most recurring side characters on Family Guy is Bill Clinton, who is in essence basically just Bill Clinton, but with the added joke that he slept around, that he was a funny Southern guy, and he had an accent.
Hey, listen, Bill, you and I need to have a talk. Boy, you are good. You are really good.
The Griffins should know by this point that presidents can be crazy and they can have weirdo appetites, but they get away with it because of who they are. Like, I'm surprised he didn't pop up in this episode once, or even got a mention. But as for Peter being press secretary, well, yeah, nothing really comes of that besides the fact it's the whole reason he's in DC in the first place. When I think him screwing up the job, or not defending Trump when he's press secretary, like to the reporters, could have been a good episode. I think we get maybe like 1 or 2 jokes, and the first one just feels like a transition to a cutaway.
To the economy.
I've tried all the herbs.
Amnesty is never the answer. It's not amnesty. It's recognizing their contributions to our country.
They said to meditate, but I keep falling asleep.
Of course, Peter doesn't believe Meg and goes back to work.
What? You're still gonna work for that man after he assaulted me?
Meg, he still hung out with Bill Clinton after he slept with Lois, so yeah. While Peter is gone, Trump comes to the Griffin residence and continues to abuse Meg. Weirdly, this is the only time I laughed at the episode, or at least at the Trump-related stuff. Like, they really should have done this the whole episode, I hate to say. Imagine him being Jabba the Hutt and doing all of his usual Trump mannerisms, but in Jabba speak. It would be super over the top in a funny way, and hey, it's different, I'll give them that. The Griffins walk in on them, and Trump tries to deflect by discussing Bob's Burgers.
You seem to know a lot about Bob's Burgers.
Of course I do. Bob's Burgers is my favorite animated show.
There's your headline, Emmy voters. Vote your conscience.
What, does Peter hate Bob's Burgers because it's actually good, unlike him? And I hate to say it, I can't believe I'm saying this, I actually agree with his logic.
How do you get off behaving like this?
Why shouldn't I? You do. When you walked through that door, you insulted Bob's Burgers and the hundreds of people who work there.
but that doesn't distract from my viewpoints. Finally, we get to the nitty-gritty of the episode.
If Peter Griffin gets to be a jerk all the time, then why can't Donald Trump?
We're a cartoon. You can turn us off. You're the president. We can't turn you off.
Excuse me, what? That's not what this is about, I'm sorry. Where are you pulling this from? A ballot box full of hanging chads manned by somebody in Georgia? The point of the episode was to make fun of Trump, but strangely, they think they need to lecture us like we're 4 years old. Like, I don't think people have ever asked this question or compared it, I'm sorry. It was pretty late in Trump's first term by this point. I think most of America knows how he is. If this was what you were going for, you need to establish this earlier. Like, Peter finds out early on that Trump is trouble or he starts to suspect something. But Trump does the whole hand thing and says, okay, I get to do it because I'm the president. You're just Peter Griffin. Wrong. How was that? And Peter can push his emotions down and keep this in mind. Like, oh, okay, Lois, he's got a good point. At least until he sees him with Meg. I don't know, but Peter vows that the Griffins will be better from here on, I guess?
That's right. And you know what else? My days of being mean and insulting are over. From here on out, I'm gonna be the nice, kind Peter Griffin.
You mean like actually being funny? Please, I just want to laugh at this episode and I can't. Like, I feel like I'm repeating myself like crazy and I actually hate doing that. I get it. You don't like the guy. Look, I don't like the guy, but this is torture.
From now on, this family's gonna be nice and supportive.
Oh, so if we're being nice now, maybe you have nice things to say to me, Dad.
Of course I do.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you. Trump tries to leave, but he's confronted by Peter when near his helicopter.
Look, you were right. I can be insulting sometimes, I admit it. But so what? I'm just a guy from Rhode Island.
Well, I mean, just because you're a guy from Rhode Island doesn't mean you can't be a good person, Peter, regardless of whether or not you're president.
Many children have learned their favorite Jewish, black, and gay jokes by watching your show over the years.
In fairness, we've been trying to phase out the gay stuff.
He's got a point, but I won't answer if that is related to me at all because you clearly haven't seen my videos.
We're a cartoon. You can turn us off.
Yeah, I try, but Fox keeps renewing you anyway. Like, I think that even Seth MacFarlane for the longest time wanted the show to end, but because it's Fox's biggest show next to The Simpsons, they keep renewing it. There's a reason he's super hands-off with it nowadays, outside of voicing the characters. They tussle a little.
Please, you're worth $700 million on the high side. And most of that is borrowed or tied up and underwater. That's why you ain't releasing your taxes, Trump. You're cash poor.
Wait, but I thought Peter knew nothing about Trump. Okay, that's like another problem. I feel like this episode is kind of inconsistently lopsided at times. Like, it has a good tone, it's good established, but I mean, just to tell jokes, they'll intentionally mess up everybody. And normally, I wouldn't mind since Family Guy isn't all that consistent to start with, but the jokes really aren't that funny, and they just keep going back and forth with the same things. And in a way, I kind of have questions. Like, does Peter know Trump has scandals, but just doesn't care because he doesn't know the guy personally or the politics don't affect him? Does he even know about Trump's scandals or the grittier details? He's not really the type to watch the news, so it should be the latter. Like, really, I wish they established this sooner. Like, maybe Peter thinks Trump is a good guy and the scandals are blown out of proportion, or he hates him until he meets him, because yeah, it really hurts the episode. Like, imagine Peter getting shattered like a mirror. And it all leads into an epic chicken fight. I guess that's something. Unless it's a sign they ran out of crap to say, so they just use this as filler, because that's primarily why they do the epic chicken fights. With Trump defeated, the Griffins move back home to Quahog, where they use the last scene to lecture us mortals who clearly don't have Twitter or BuzzFeed on why we shouldn't vote for a guy.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm not gonna miss Washington, D.C.
Well, we had a lot of fun this week and changed 0 minds.
Okay, I get it, okay? God, I need to go vote. Actually, I think I already did. Like, I was already going to, but please stop, I beg of you. Can you just stop? You have everything here that I hate about political episodes. See, my biggest problem with political episodes is they tend to not actually do anything with the topic they present. They tend to just lecture people because they only stick to one side. When for me, I think they shouldn't lecture, they should persuade persuade the audience, since why should I follow your line of thinking? Even with South Park, there's times where I'll disagree with them, but I can still understand what they're saying. Normally for me, I prefer when they handle both sides because it makes it even-handed. But because Trump is such a controversial figure, you know there's little to no way they can make this a well-balanced take. And that goes for any show with a political bent. And really, it just makes this whole episode feel like a first draft. Really? This is the best you could come up with? If you want to see a better Trump episode, go watch Madam Ex-President by Brandon Rogers. It's actually funny. Anyhow, bye!